Welcome to the National Indian Gaming Association's The New Normal webcast, the Seminole Compact, What Happened and What's Next. My name is Ashley Cope, and I'm the marketing manager for the Indian Gaming Trade Show and Convention. I just want to share a few housekeeping tips before we get started. Everyone is muted by default except for our speakers. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question or chat box and they'll be brought up at the end. And this session will also be recorded and available on our website. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce Victor Rocha, Conference Chairman of the National Indian Gaming Association.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Jason. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Victor Rocha, and this is the National Gaming Association's webcast, The New Normal. My co-host is Jason Giles, the Executive Director of the National Gaming Association. And tonight, we're very fortunate to have our friend Ellen Klas back to talk about the Seminole Compact and the recent legal adventures, I guess we could say. Mary Ellen.
Mary Ellen, can you hear me?
Now I can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me? All right, so then it's Victor. Okay, I was worried it was me for a second. I'm sorry.
You're froze on me.
Yeah, Victor froze up. So let's just go ahead and thank you for jumping in with us today. Late notice. I know you're busy down there at are you at the Capitol right now?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I was briefly.
Oh, okay. Excellent.
Good.
So able to get away from there, but a couple of things, the decision that came out, I think just to recap for everyone on the call, the folks that brought this lawsuit were commercial interests, correct?
Right. There were actually two lawsuits.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is a parimutuel that is in competition with the Seminole tribe.
Right.
West Flagler, right.
Right. So
and the other was a group of business interests that were not interested, don't want to see gaming expanded in Florida.
That's right. Are you back with us, Victor? Oh, but you're on mute.
There you go. Unmute.
Okay.
Now are we okay?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So we were just reminding everyone of the players in this. And, it's commercial interests in Florida, that are, they believe they have an argument that this is an expansion of gambling. And at least so far that's won out in this court. And it's interesting because, the DOJ, Department of Justice, was asked to weigh in. And you've got to remember the Department of Interior, nobody signed this compact approval. They just let it go past the deadline, which is deemed approval by law if there's no action taken on it. So, they have an easy out to say, look, we were brand new when this compact was given to us. We didn't have time to evaluate it. Trump administration had time to, do what they wanted with it. They just, let it cook and bake until the Biden folks got in, and then they let it be deemed approved by law. But when the judge asked the DOJ to weigh in and say, look, I need some answers on certain things, I'll just say, when we read the Department of Justice brief, it was thorough, but kind of threadbare. And they kind of just threw everything back on the state and tribe and said, look, if they say it's legal under state law, then that's good enough for us. And it's legal under state law. And the judge, she kind of called him out on all this and just said, you can't just make up the law and then say that's the law. So, I think she wanted a little more out of Department of Justice. And this is going to be a case that might be around for a while. And the fact that Seminoles were already up and running with sports betting complicates things. What have you heard from Seminoles, what their next steps are? Do they have to stop sports betting right now?
They're continuing to take bets. Their app is operating as of today. It is very clear that there's a little bit of a legal limbo happening in Florida right now, where we've got this federal court ruling that basically says that the existing compact, that the old compact, the previous agreement with the tribe, which did not authorize sports betting or roulette or craps, that is the only active compact, and the one that they agreed to in earlier this year has been invalidated. However, who enforces that? And that to me, you guys know better than I about this, but it does seem as if there are some entities that have the potential to enforce it. The judge, I understand, could issue some kind of a show cause order and enforce it, but no one has done it at this point. And that may be because they are sort of trying to get an expedited appeal through the District of Columbia Federal Appellate Court. And they had a deadline of yesterday for those motions. And maybe a judge will rule on whether or not he accepts their request for a stay or rejects it. So that may happen soon. And whatever that decision is will, I think, help define whether they will be able to continue to operate or not.
One of the things I noticed is that, everything has moved pretty quickly through the courts. I mean, expedited is normally these things take a while, but the court seems to really pick up the pace of this thing. Now, one of the things that's been really interesting for me is the fact that, you have a state that actually is in agreement with the tribe. It's like, this is what we want, and this is the deal we sign with the tribes, yet the court is saying, well, the law is this. And so where does that, how does that make this thing? I mean, besides fascinating and interesting, where does it, how much more is it going to complicate this? Is the judge going to take this into consideration?
That's a really interesting observation. This whole thing is been weird. I mean, Jason pointed out how the federal court's response was like hands off. Like we don't really want to get too much into the merits of this argument. We just, we don't want to touch it too much. The state has had the same reaction. The governor basically said, we're not a party to the lawsuit. We don't have anything to do with this, when it would only exist if because he signed the compact, and because under Florida law, the legislature has to validate it, and they amended it slightly. So, they don't have clean hands here, but they don't want to make a big case of it. And I think the reason for that is the legal argument on which this compact is resting, which is this sort of unique notion of a hub and spoke model for sports betting, that under Florida law, you can't expand gambling unless it's done in a compact or a voter referendum. Well, they didn't do a voter referendum on this, but they did it through the compact. And the way they did it, the way they allowed sports betting, is to say that all sports bets will go through the tribe's server. And because the tribe's internet server is physically located on tribal property, that means that all bets anywhere in the state are physically located on tribal property. The district court basically said that's a fiction, that there's nothing to that. Everybody knows that a tribal property is, a geographic area, and it's not something in the Ethernet, and it is where it is. So the Florida legislature and governor supported that argument, but there were legislators who warned, this is kind of uncharted territory. We don't know if this will stand in court. And then the governor, after the federal court invalidated the compact, the governor said, well, we admit it was kind of untested legal ground. So we have these, this kind of mixture of, not everybody really wants to own it entirely, and they're going to kind of wait for the court to settle and shake it all out.
That's funny you say that. I think the quote I saw the other day with the governor was saying, well, we had to sign this deal. If we wouldn't have signed it, if we wouldn't have put in the online gaming component, the Seminoles wouldn't have come to the table. You know what I mean? So it's really kind of like, like you say, not owning it. You know what I mean? So, but then on the other side of this too, you also have a federal government that seems to be willing to go along with the Seminoles, at least for a while here, and that kind of gives it a strength. Jason, where's this? I've seen this before in tribal gaming. Before you see this in land deals. I think with North Fork Rancheria, that's the way that deal was done. It wasn't signed; it went into law. So this isn't new territory, right?
Well, I would say that the posture of the federal government in this is unprecedented. In the past, the federal government has either come to the defense of the tribe or been on the other side and, arguing against expansions of tribal gaming. That was the Seminole case. And this, again, like I said, the Biden administration has a little bit of an easy out here. They haven't even been in power for a year yet. Everyone wants to blame them for everything from inflation to, your price of coffee. It's been 10 months they've been in power. And again, you could tell by the DOJ brief, you could tell by the fact that Deb Haaland didn't approve this contract. They just thought, well, look, if Seminoles and the governor have worked it out, we've already got enough fights with him. We're not going to get in the middle and piss off a tribe or potentially make Indian country uncomfortable. But this judge had a very narrow set of facts before her, Victor. So, it was a motion for summary judgment, and those tend to move fairly quickly, especially when the parties are all in agreement. And the fact that DeSantis's administration and Biden administration were kind of hands off. The problem is now you've got aggrieved parties with a court victory in their hand, and to think that they're going to sit there and just let Seminoles continue to do sports betting and everything, that's not going to happen here. And so that some adjustments have to be made. And now I think the Biden administration and Governor DeSantis, they've got to get in there. And there's easy fixes to this. Maybe the Interior is called again to reevaluate this in lieu of the court decision, and then they can say, well, they can issue something a little clearer, if you will, on where they stand on this whole server issue and where the bets, whether it's on Indian lands or not. Or Florida could simply just go back to the drawing board and make some more amendments to the compact to comply with the judge's wishes. It's not hard. I guess Florida is, Mary Ellen, maybe you can explain this. They're sort of hemmed in though with that one law that only a few counties can have gambling. And so if they want to try to open it up more and make it more equitable and move away from just saying what the law is and actually have a law that says in Florida, we don't care. We only care where the servers are taking the bets. But if you do that, do they only care where the servers are when you're placing an online order to buy something? I don't think so. They want to collect taxes.
Are you saying
that's a great argument?
So where's the burger made when you order it? Is that what you're saying? Where's the burger made? Is the burger made on the res, or is the burger made at the restaurant, or is it made at the house?
But maybe you could get into that a little bit, Mary Ellen, how this whole gambling in Florida itself is kind of a hodgepodge of laws.
Yeah. You really hit on a very interesting situation that we have here in Florida. The remedy in Florida is only going to happen if for sports betting, if two things. If, as you say, the federal government all of a sudden deems that online betting can occur on a reservation, or online betting can occur throughout the state, and that be deemed physically at a reservation. Now I don't know what it will take to get to that logic, but that would have to happen. The second thing to remedy this, to allow for any kind of sports betting in Florida, online sports betting, would be to have a referendum where the voters in November 2022 vote for it. Now we've got DraftKings and FanDuel are eagerly working, hiring all kinds of petition gatherers to put that effort on the ballot next year. Their deadline is February. It's a huge lift.
Wow.
However, And especially since there's now been some reporting that the Seminole tribe is out there trying to outbid the petition gatherers to get them not to collect signatures, right? So this is
Wow.
the war we've got going on with that.
I love Florida. I am sorry, but I love Florida. I love Florida politics. There's everything about it that I love. Keep going, Marilyn. I'm sorry. I just had to.
No, but
interject there,
so then to solve this problem, it's up to the legislature. They can, without having to gather any signatures, put an initiative on the ballot that basically says what they wanted this compact to say. And you know what? I think it will pass because voters kind of want online betting and they don't really care if the tribe has it or not. So that's the question for them. Now, there will be a lot of opponents, especially this group that is filed this lawsuit, that see this as an expansion of gambling and they don't want it at all. What they are more afraid of, however, is casino expansion in Miami Beach and Miami. They see full-fledged Las Vegas casinos all over the place, and that's what they fear. So I think if there is a constitutional amendment that's put on by the legislature, there will be some heavy guns financing opposition to it.
Wow. You know, and it, for me, I find it fascinating that it kind of all goes back to that initiative about stopping the expansion of gambling. It just, to me, it's felt very short-term and myopic. And then immediately, as soon as it's passed, they were talking about expansion, and here we are, right?
So this is the interesting thing. I think that the Seminole tribe gave money to that effort because the language explicitly excluded a compact. So you can expand only if it's in a compact without going through this voter initiative. So they thought this would help ice their monopoly, right? And now they're in this quagmire that is kind of their own making.
Yeah, but it also involves Disney too, because wasn't Disney involved in financing that initiative also?
Yes.
And now they're looking for partners, and they're so it's kind of, listen, I'm from California, so listen, I have no right to say anything about Florida, but as a Californian, it makes me feel better, that I live over here. Just saying. Jason, what do we think about this, man? I mean, this is so fascinating. First of all, Mary Ellen, thank you so much. I think you're having as much fun with this as we are.
Well, Mary Ellen,
because it is fascinating. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, thank you, Mary Ellen, again, because we read your articles, and you're on the ground there, so we get more information from you than from anyone, frankly. You're also a disinterested party, and so and we know, we hear stuff from the tribal side and then the government side, but the court hearings are always good because you're not going to go in there and lie, and you're not going to put yourself at jeopardy, and I think that's what the judge saw through all of this, and she's like, no one's given me any legal stand here, legal justifications, so therefore this compact is against the law. But I think moving forward, is DeSantis up in 2022? Does he have an election himself?
Yes.
I mean, there again is another, factor in all of this. And, I don't know how this shakes out for Indian country. It was an anomaly to begin with, in a sense, but we were looking at that question of if a tribe has a server on its reservation and they take bets from off the reservation, does that constitute gambling on Indian lands for IGRA purposes? So at least we have one court, unfortunately, right now. It's long been our opinion, and we would like to see that, because tribes are at a geographic disadvantage. They're at a economic disadvantage, and we always wanted to have our eye on the future of how other tribal reservation economies could help each other out. And so, we need some changes in the law. This might have been a way to move that along a little faster, because frankly, it's unfair that the states have, the lottos, that they're all working together for these huge jackpots and everything. Why Indian country can't do that is simply because the DOJ has always hinted that would, be violating the Wire Act. But this case came along, and like you said, Marilyn, we're gonna have to just play this thing out into the next year. And I really feel for the Seminoles right now, because they've already made big money investments in their infrastructure and getting things up and running. And it's a tough situation to be in right now for them, and they're probably wondering what the next steps are. To your point, Mary Ellen, about enforcement, now we're in the interesting position, Victor, of DeSantis. He can't send state troops in there or anyone to stop the sports betting. There may be something in their existing compact that gives the Florida regulators some authority to maybe a cease and desist or something along those lines. But this is going to be a federal government call, and like you said, we'll have to see what the DC Circuit Court of Appeals says, and if they are going to get this expedited. I got to tell you, Mary Ellen, it's not a criminal case, and there's no life or limbs at issue. It's Christmas. It's not something that they might rush and get done before the end of the year. So that goes right back into your point of we're into January, February, waiting for an appeals court ruling on just a stay of this motion. Forget about the arguments of the actual ruling. That's going to be months down the line. So it's a really tough position for DOJ to be in, and the Interior at this point, and they're going to have to really. I know they want to help Indian country, but we don't want to have a bunch of bad precedent out there either of DOJ agents coming in to stop a gambling operation at the direction of a district court. So that's kind of where we're at. That's what with the elections next year.
Yeah, I feel that it really brings the issue back to the forefront that the tribes have to resolve this issue with either amending NIGRA or getting some type of relief, where the tribes are going to be left behind. So I think it just really brings the issue right to the forefront, that it's something that just can't be swept or ignored anymore. I mean, especially if you look back in California at Desert Rose, which talked about this issue, that it has to be on the reservation. You can't have a proxy. You can't have. So I think I think the courts have some interesting cases to look at. But I think we'll have to. It doesn't look too good, but I'm not a lawyer, so we'll see what that happens. We have a couple questions here. One is from Anonymous. It says, how is this going to set precedents for other tribes and other forms of gaming? Jason, I think we just kind of answered that right now.
I mean, it's up in the air right now, but in that novel approach of the server on Indian lands, again, if that had passed muster here in Florida, that was going to open up some opportunities for other tribes and states that where their governor won't deal with them or won't sign a compact or just won't consider sports betting. So right now it's up in the air again, and I'm not sure it's setting much precedent right now.
From our friend Knut said, it goes, has any legislation been introduced, or have any legislators talked about legislation to put an initiative on the ballot? Mary Ellen, that would be for you.
Yeah, so the Florida legislature meets from January to March of next year. And they can quickly, as they showed last year, by quickly putting together the compact, they can quickly get something on the ballot. I think they are likely to wait to see what the District Court of Appeal rules here and whether they stay the decision and whether this gets ruled, rejected, the lower court ruling gets rejected. The other thing that could happen, and I'm curious to get your insight into this, is, when the Deputy Secretary of Indian Affairs at Department of Interior, when he issued the letter, basically off, not acting and letting the compact become law, he said that evolving technology should be something that is not an impediment to tribes participating in gaming expansion. So that's his position. How does that become law? I mean, how do they make that formalized? It sounds like, is there a process? Is it only through the courts?
There is no way the only way he could make that law is to start writing up a regulation and go through the federal regulations. And that takes about a year. And that would be a very controversial regulation to try to get through. as part of department policy. So he really doesn't. And these letters and opinion letters are all certainly relied on a lot of times as more guidance, but also, let's be honest, you take that guidance and you put it into action, you're implementing policy and law. So but yeah, it would be a thin reed to stand on for moving forward with this. It's just not enough whatsoever. And again, it goes back to my point of, these guys are in a tough legal position now, and they kind of need the DeSantis and the Florida legislature to get them out of this little pickle. So
well, and Mary Ellen, there also is one other little wrinkle in this, is that there is a bill, a federal bill that they've been talking about that's with Lou Correa, which would deal with some of these issues. But I think the chances of that passing or moving right now doesn't seem to be very good. But there are opportunities. But I think for me as a layman, I think this brings in, and I think what Brian was writing about there was just highlighting the fact that these issues need to be dealt with sooner than later, because they are putting the tribes at a disadvantage as gambling is expanding. And so I think you're looking at a government that is sympathetic to the tribes, that is doing everything they can to help them within the law. And part of that strategy sometimes is slowing down, dragging your feet, and giving the tribes a little opportunity to catch their breath. But, I think I personally feel that the industry is moving so fast and nobody's waiting for anybody, and so the tribes are seeing wait for us, and the industry's like, nope, we're not waiting for anyone. So that's what happened in California. You're looking at the tribes getting ahead of this and putting it on the ballot initiative, not making the same mistakes that they saw happening in Florida, and creating a path for online gaming too. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out in Florida. But I think a lot of us are hoping for a favorable result, but it's looking pretty grim right now. Jason, what do you think, man?
Yeah, and Marilyn, I don't know if you're familiar with that legislation. It's Representative Lou Correa, Correa. He's from California. I forget the bill number right now, but there's legislation out there to amend the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act to provide for what the Seminoles and the state were trying to do here. And again, as Victor said, that we're just a long way from a lot of consideration of that, but it has been out there, and there's been one or two tribes that advocating for that for several years now. I don't know if this gives it any more impetus at all in Congress. They have all these deadlines this month that they may or may not make to get individual legislation moving. Is just so difficult in this environment. It'd have to be part of a larger package. But I don't know, Mary Ellen. I really think the solution lies, the easiest one is right there in Florida. And you have a lot of factors and a lot of moving parts down there going into next year. And only a 3-month legislative session.
Less than that, 2 months. 2 months. Yeah.
And that's for the whole year.
Oh yeah.
I suppose they could do special sessions, but
it's an election year. That's unlikely, but yeah.
Wow. This is it's just sort of hold on to your seats and let's see how this plays out.
Yeah, Jason, we had one more question. That was from Canute also. He seems to be living at the typewriter. Hello, Canute. He wants to know, does the NIGC have any responsibility for enforcement? Which I think is a good question.
That is a good question. So the National Indian Gaming Commission, for sure, if there's gaming not being operated according to IGRA, that is their enforcement authority, and that's what they exist to do. It would take a court, something from this court to say, please, enforce this, enforce my ruling. And I think if you got a letter from the NIGC saying, according to this district court ruling, et cetera, I think the tribe would do the appropriate thing there, and nobody wants to put their licenses at risk, and no tribal gaming regulator wants to be crosswise with the NIGC. So their NIGC does have an enforcement role in this for sure. The thing is, in the past, the DOJ has always sort of hovered over them and taken action, even when the NIGC was not in favor of taking action. So they definitely have a role. I'm not sure it's as strong as, what the DOJ can bring to bear, or even Department of Interior.
So I think on that, Mary Ellen, I would like to thank you again. I promise you this would be a shorter one. I really appreciated you made this fascinating issue come to life. It's even more messed up than I thought. I really appreciate that. Jason, what do you think, brother? That was fascinating, wasn't it?
Yeah, it is. And the Seminoles have always been at the forefront of tribal gaming. And here they are again, taking things right up to where they believe it should be. And the best thing the Seminoles have in their favor is they are just fiercely independent and fiercely sovereign, and nobody ever questioned their sovereignty and their dedication and tribal preservation of what little land they have left. Remember their history. They were part of the removal process, but they went south and went into the swamps and fought the U.S. Marine Corps down there. And so that history has lived on, and now they have actual resources in the terms of money. So I think they'll be able to take care of themselves, but we would like to see, definitely for Indian policy across the country, have this resolved sooner rather than later.
And on that note, so again, Mary Ellen Klas, thank you very much. We read all your stuff, and everyone here, and everyone that reads also reads it, and you're one of our favorite reporters. And
Yes.
To all the viewers, thanks again. We'll talk to you guys next week. We'll talk to you guys. Thanks. Bye, Mary Ellen. Bye-bye.
Bye.